Hi, everybody. Welcome back. I hope that was useful. I know some of the rooms got a little mixed up and ended up with different proportions, but hopefully it all worked out. I am hoping to have maybe a volunteer from each group to just very briefly. This is super informal. Talk about what you did in your groups. Just again, so we can all kind of get a better idea of what different folks are hoping to do with QGreenland or different ideas for how to use QGreenland. So I'll just go down the list of groups. If you would like to share your screen, I think you should be able to do that if you want to show any map or anything you created. Otherwise, feel free just to describe what you did. So let's start out with breakout room 3, which was Claire, David, Joe, and Ken.
Okay, I'll share my screen then. And so we used the terminus position layer or set of layers for trace termini between 2000 and 2017 for a bunch of different years. And then we tried to get a total amount of retreat between the start and the end of that time period. We did that using, I think it was the line to hub distance measuring tool. And then we converted that to points using a centroid tool also out of the processing toolbox, and then plotted it up here where the size of the ball is the amount of retreat in meters over those 17 years. And we called it all retreat because it probably mostly is, but we don't actually have a, if it was advanced, we would get the sign wrong. But yeah, that's what we have.
Great, thanks so much. Okay, room 5, which is Yen, Nicole, and Anja.
Yeah, that's us.
Great.
Sorry, I was just fiddling with our legend.
No problem.
Maybe I can get some tips from you guys. So I guess first question is, we were trying to display our legend and it's showing like every individual classification for the ice thickness change. So if anyone has any tips on how to change it to just like a color ramp, that would be great. So I'll just delete that for clarity's sake. But what we did is we took the layer that was the ice height change from 2003 to 2019. And we used the calculate surface volume function to calculate the total ice volume that had been lost in that amount of time. And then we did a simple calculation to convert that to the equivalent in sea level rise in millimeters between 2003 and 2019. And we got 0.12 millimeters of sea level rise contribution from this data set.
Actually, I'll add something. I just read the information of the layer, and it's actually meters per year change, not total change. So I guess it would be like 0.12 millimeters per year sea level rise.
Yeah, definitely.
Very cool. So it looks like you guys still have the QGreenland or the Greenland Coastlines 2017 layer on. So the one thing that we didn't like very much about this layer is in putting it on top of other layers to ensure you can see the coastlines, that fill will add a green tint to everything underneath it. So if you don't want to see, you can always disable that layer.
Okay. Makes sense. Cool.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys.
Okay, room 6, George, Wolfgang, and Asa.
Hey, good to see you all. I'll share my screen here. So Wolfgang used to work on cruise ships, and one of his products would be like making maps to show like where today's hike was going, like how long it would be. So I was glad to see there was that sample data set with the GPS track. So we just dragged in the GPS track and it showed the points. So that was convenient. I think, yeah, that you mentioned there's also a plugin that imports GPS files. In this case, I just dragged it in and it gave me some options. So this is good for a basic view. And then I figured QGIS already includes this great topographic map and the Arctic DEM. So I figured I would mash them on the top of each other and make a nice shaded relief. So a easy way to do this is I like to put my image or my map on top of the DEM. And then in your image, go to this blending mode. And when you just have it on normally, it'll just be flat like this. And I just change it to multiply. And then it will multiply the values. It will like combine the values of the image and the DEM and create a cool like 3D looking shaded relief. And then you kind of fiddle with the brightness and saturation. But this is a lot better than the old method, which was where you would just tinker with the transparency, because this method, it would get very sort of washed out and gray. So I always recommend like this multiply when trying to combine two like rasters together, or like vector and raster to get cool shaded relief. So another thing this actually goes nicely, Ken was asking about this, if you want to create basically two different map panes, like I'll just show you our like result here. Like how do you have like an overview map and an inset map like at the same time with the same data, or with different data actually. And so I'll show you my method, and I think it's fairly standard. So this is my inset map. So I want first I get all the layers like styled how I want, though this can be changed later. And then I go to this little eyeball icon at the top of the layers list, and it's called Manage Map Themes. And I can't do it right now, but I would add theme and call this one inset. And then it'll show up here. And then when I get my layer, and then I'll like turn off all those layers, put on the layers I want for my overview map. And I will go up here and select add theme and call this like my overview map. And then at any time they're in this little menu, and I can switch back and forth between my inset that looks like this and my overview that looks like this. And that's like handy just in the map view, but it's also really handy in the layout view, because I can create two different map panes. And then I go to this button that says follow map theme. And I could say, I want this one to be the overview, or I can change it to be the inset. And so I just have one map for each theme. You can also have it not follow a theme and just do whatever you want. There's this handy box here too, which is lock layers. If you don't want to do a theme, you get the layers exactly how you want. You put down your map panel, and then you just click lock layers, and it just sticks with whatever layers you had when you clicked that box. So I think that's all I'll say for this. That was kind of a lot, but that's my general practice for having two different map panes with different styles.
Those were all awesome tips. Thanks, George.
Sure.
Yeah, fantastic.
All right, and then at the last breakout room 7, Bob and Niels.
Sure, so I can just shortly present. We didn't follow the directions and we didn't make a map, but we did, if I can share this. So we were looking at the Surmut-Kealak, Jakobshavn superglacial lakes from 2019. And we were interested in looking at the time series of those. And so if you look at the layer, there are lots of different lakes, and they all have a date, they all have an area, they all have an elevation, and so on. But we were interested in looking at the total area over time. So using the statistics by categories tool from the vector analysis processing toolbox, we used that as the input vector layer, selected the area to calculate statistics on the area, and then selected the date to do with the categories. And when you run that, you then get a nice table here that has the count, so the number of different lakes by date, the unique values, the minimum, maximum range, etc. And so then the next step that we would have done would be to export this and then make a nice plot in Python or something like that. But that's more or less what we did. And then we spent most of the rest of the time just looking at the hillshade here and the lakes and how they're distributed and all that, because it's very pretty.
The super great glacial lakes on the satellite imagery are especially cool. The online only satellite imagery.
Yeah.
Great, thanks, Bob. And thanks so much, everyone. I will note that this session is being recorded, and we would love to be able to share that recording with you so that you can go back and watch this part and relearn from folks who presented about what they did, just to remember the ideas for the future. And an important piece of that is if you didn't fill out the pre-workshop survey that we sent over email, part of that survey is a media release, and it's important that we do have that for everybody if we can. So even if you don't want to answer any of the survey questions, if you could just go to that, put in your name and agree to the media release and submit it, that's good enough for us. So if you haven't already done that, please do that. And again, that was in the email that was sent out to you yesterday. Yesterday, I guess, for us, those here in Colorado, and a week ago. One other thing that I will say is that we have a lot of future plans for resources, educational resources, training resources for QGreenland. And so if there are specific topics that you would love to see a training tutorial video on, we do have a YouTube channel, and we would love ideas for those, and we can quickly create those and throw those onto our YouTube channel. And we also plan on making classroom curriculum. So if you're teaching GIS in one of your courses or for other purposes, and you have ideas for curriculum that you would like to see, or even write yourself and submit to us, those are other resources that we'd love to be able to throw out into the GIS world and share with folks that they can use for themselves. And again, of course, if you have any questions or you want to touch base with us, feel free to email us. So just to close here, I'll also say that we will send out a follow-up email after the workshop with another survey. Thanks for your patience with these surveys, just assessing how the workshop went and how we can make improvements to these workshops in the future. So we do appreciate you taking a few minutes to fill that out as well. And in the last 5 minutes, I'll just close here and say thanks so much for joining us. And we'll stick around for 5 minutes in case anybody has questions or would like to chat further. But thanks so much, and we hope to see you again in the future.